afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to another edition of the Partner Spotlight podcast. This new series is going to focus on educating our listeners and get to know our partners and our guests. So stay tuned for upcoming episodes and make sure to join us and listen in. I'm Taryn, your host for today's edition, leading the Webex Solutions Plus program. And joining me today is a very special guest and co-host, Justin Ramirez, head of Webex Ecosystem Partnerships, Cloud Calling, Video Devices, and App Development. Just a short introduction, Justin has been with Cisco for over 9 years and has led various roles from business development, alliances, and strategy and engineering. Justin, it's great to have you in our program.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have him back in our program. Joining me is David Warren, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Prezi. David, how are you?
I'm great. Nice to see you again, Taryn.
Nice to see you.
Perfect. And thank you very much, David, for coming back with us, and hope things are going well for you and Prezi right now.
So well. It's wonderful. It's a summer day in San Diego, and I'm getting to spend time with two friends from Cisco. So it's great. How are you?
Love to hear it. Same thing, hot as ever in the Texas area, but of course that's to be expected in this time of year. But actually, it's funny. I think my first question is, really, how did Cisco and Prezi originally get together, and how did we meet? And I think we're going to end back up on a summer night in Vegas at the end of this story.
I think so. It was back in 2019, so it's a full 2 years ago. And Prezi was about to launch Prezi Video, and we really wanted sort of a singular launch partner that could match our vision. Prezi was known for presentations and visuals for sort of once-in-a-lifetime moment on the TED stage. And we were developing this product to bring that same impact to every conversation happening over a video call. And so C-levels connected, and as often happens in that case, Justin and I then operationalize the spark of a relationship. And so yes, one of my favorite memories I think it's probably the last live impact event in Las Vegas.
Yep.
And we were at this rooftop event, and people were lining up to talk till like 1 a.m. in the morning. And usually people have moved on to other interests at 1 a.m. in Las Vegas, but that was a magical moment for sure.
Yeah, no, that was we typically save those invites for things that we really want to place a bet on, and we've heard so many requests for so long of how do I have executive titles and branding and more engaging things that would typically require an entire group of folks doing white glove production, and it wasn't a new use case, but it was unachievable by so many of our WebEx users. And I thank you and some of the executives on your team for sticking it out, because it was literally a rooftop event, and outside in Vegas, it was like 100 degrees, even though it was
somehow
yeah.
Somehow it managed to do that. Yeah.
So that was great. I think that somewhat solidified that yes, there was smoke here, that a fire was beginning to start. And like you said, literally our last event before the pandemic kicked in. And so I'm curious, what is the current situation of the pandemic doing, to your business, or maybe to actually thrust your business into the limelight?
Yeah, it's I mean, no one could have predicted this, right? And if we could have followed our plan at the start of 2020 and not had the pandemic, we would have taken that hands down. But it did happen, and it happened to all of us. And because Prezi had built this out of 10 years of making people look great on stage, right? We built it on top of 10 years of IP and a 3D modeling engine enjoyed by 120 million worldwide users. We weren't caught flat-footed. We weren't reactive to it. And because we'd already started the partnership with WebEx, we could both go into this being in this posture of thought leadership with a built-out product, support, existing enterprise deployments, so that we could immediately be a part of the solution rather than part of the thrash that I think we all had to work through when the pandemic hit. So we sort of call it the business silver lining in a dark global cloud.
Wow, I love that. That's a great term. And I think a lot of folks can somewhat relate that what may have been a couple of years of velocity happened so quickly, and the type of tools to really enable hybrid work benefited from that. And obviously, Cisco and the growth we've seen at WebEx is right there with you. One other components of our Solutions Plus program that I'm such a huge proponent of is obviously being thrust into the forefront with our channel partners. And you all, as you mentioned, coming from a very mature, well-established business, you already had that muscle memory built, and access to the Cisco channel is obviously a benefit. So I'm curious, how has the Cisco VAR community embraced Prezi, or what have you seen there thus far?
2 years later, in some ways, it still feels like it's 1 a.m. in Vegas. We are hiring people to keep up with the interest and demand from the Cisco sales channel, and the direct Cisco sellers as well as the partners. The Cisco people are great. They like tech. They just start pushing buttons. They get right into it. They, like you said, they want to solve this use case. And so we'll give people a license, and the next day they're looking great in their meetings. And so I think too, what's been salient for the Cisco sales channel has been that our current solution we have with Webex and then the joint roadmap together are a major competitive differentiator for Webex sellers. And I think that that's resonated very strongly. I mentioned we're on the global price list, which was a huge accomplishment, a long journey. We've already closed our first deal with a Fortune 50 through the global price list.
Yes.
And that deal moved quickly, even though the office of the CIO was involved at that company, because it fits what CEOs are looking for right now. They're asking themselves, how do we drive better meetings, deeper collaboration, enhance productivity? And just based off that question, you can sort of see already the overlap of Prezi and Cisco messaging, software, and hardware. So it's really exciting. As I mentioned, we closed the deal on GPL, but also just generically in our business, Cisco is now the second largest source of business leads for us.
Wow.
And even in the midst of a sustained surge of our general business, which is already quite established, last quarter we had our largest land deal ever. We had our largest deal ever. And so there's just a ton of momentum behind our solution, and we think just the winning combination is doing that with Webex.
I love that data point. That's a fantastic testament to the work that our joint teams have been doing to just beat the drum, make sure that Prezi becomes more of a household name. So that spurred a couple of other thoughts. So the G in GPL, as you mentioned, is global. So Prezi is headquartered, from, I believe, Budapest, right? And can you speak to the global reach of your Prezi video offer?
Yeah, Prezi was founded in Budapest, and most of the executive team is now in the U.S. But we serve, again, 120 million users worldwide, and so that means that we have to work on all types of machines. We have to work across a lot of language groups, and we have to work intuitively. And so that becomes a good tool for the Webex sellers as well, trying to drive engagement and pickup and reducing complexity, and again, reducing thrash to get to that layer of engagement. So we love serving the global community. I feel like we have a microcosm of it with Webex in our Ask Prezi space, where when I log in the morning, man, that space has been buzzing around the clock. And so it's fun to follow the sun with Webex and Prezi.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great point. So anyone listening that wants to join, they're an avid user of the Webex app, want to join the Ask Prezi community there, a vanity URL is cs.co/join Prezi with the J and P capitalized in join Prezi. Yeah, I think we're well over 700 or 800 folks that are along for the ride there.
And we just crossed 900 this morning, actually, Justin.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. And I brought up the global reach because, to be honest, it's somewhat difficult to match, the reach of Cisco Webex and the pace that our VAR community and sellers. So a new SolutionsPlus participant able to achieve that as well, lockstep right out of the gate, is actually fairly unique. So it's a great one to call out. You hit one other point there, and to be honest, this isn't where we started with, back, where drinks were being had in Las Vegas. You mentioned support with even Webex hardware. So I've seen some great documents that the Prezi team has put out, even great feedback and demand, more questions and more feature requests from participants of our community. Can you describe a bit of the synergies that you're seeing there with some of the hardware from Cisco?
It's really powerful as you all move to hot desks, and as many of the Cisco sellers we work with are on Desk Pros and things like that. Is how do we make it work with the equipment you have to make great use of the advantages that come with Cisco hardware? And so we're working closely with the collab BU, and of course the first step was to make sure that there's no conflict. That there's no conflict of vision, right? And so we cleared that with the collab BU that what they're doing, especially in regards to things like immersive share, is totally not in conflict, perfectly complementary to what Prezi is doing. But then to develop that bigger vision of what does the hot desk look like, what can we do in future hardware, but then to take care of the little things that we know really matter, right? It matters that the content is crisp, and that it's the right aspect ratio, and that it's not cut off, and that the content is highlighted when the speaker is presenting. And we think that reducing that friction, even incrementally but still persistently, continues just to put the best foot forward on the joint solution.
Yeah, and just for all those listening, we're using it quite often. All of the USB capable devices that Webex makes, leverage a great high quality video and microphone. But of course, if you want to add the engaging and immersive capabilities of Prezi, things like the Webex Desk Pro, as David mentioned, the Webex RoomKit USB, RoomKit Mini, and of course the new small footprint, the Webex Desk Cam. All of those are USB inherently capable and can take advantage of Prezi right out of the gate. So one last piece of more big news, I should say, if any of you missed Webex 1 in the winter timeframe, you actually may have missed that all of our on-demand sessions were actually powered by Prezi. So this is something that, David and team were connected up with our CMO. They had a conversation about the type of value that Prezi could add. And we were able to use it at a much more high-scale, large event of that nature. You may have seen that we recently announced and closed the acquisition of a company called Socio. This is large events, live, virtual, or the combination in hybrid. Now, I want to believe that there's some synergies here with what Prezi does in these larger event type venues. And I'm curious, David, if you could speak to what that potential might look like from other experiences you all have had.
Sure. Well, congratulations on the acquisition. I think it's just another example of Cisco accelerating into the turn as we transition to hybrid work. So we think that hybrid events are here to stay. And in a way, it's a return to Prezi's roots on the TED stage. The winning hybrid event is going to have smooth tech and engaging visuals and concise value. And so Webex, Socio, Prezi, we provide the smooth tech and the engaging visuals, which frees up event teams to focus on that concise value. So yeah, we're really excited about the combination and serving more customers that way.
Perfect. So I think if you look at the alignment to the Webex portfolio, and we refer to it as the Webex suite, from the knowledge worker that may be on a laptop, having their day-to-day meetings, the teacher, professor wanting to have more of a curriculum-driven training or education-focused type session, all the way up to webinars, a few hundred to a few thousand folks, all the way up to picture a TED Talk happening on a Socio-like platform. Prezi can help across the spectrum, and obviously our pricing that we have on our price list it makes it achievable and it makes it attainable, to cover all of those bases as well. So we're really excited at the not only the potential, but what we're already seeing in terms of usage and demand of the Prezi toolset. So with that, David, I just thank you again for joining me here on this today's podcast series. It was great to talk and reminisce with you again.
Indeed, it was great. I think about 2 years ago when you offered us that small table at a rooftop event at Impact. And this year at Impact, which is weeks away now, Prezi is powering main stage presentations. In the partnership, we're closing deals together, but most importantly, we're supporting common customers as they look to a future of hybrid work. So I would just say, practically speaking, what this means for customer-facing teams at Cisco who might be listening to this right now is that you too can be about to land your largest deal ever. Let's connect and do that together. So you can find our Ask Prezi space in Webex, or follow the link in this podcast to get a license of Prezi and training to make your next meeting amazing with Webex and Prezi.
I love it. Thank you so much, David.
Thanks so much for listening to the Partner Spotlight. For easy listening, stay tuned for more episodes with SolutionsPlus and our partners. Once again, I'm your host, Taryn and Justin. We hope you enjoyed today's edition. Join us next time for more.